over the course of today's runnings, despite what we saw from Alutemu's impressive victory at the start. But we can take a look, as we've been talking about, at this particular rogue, because Shaxy does have something a little bit different at the very least to pull out.
That's right. He's not cooking up a list that's Highlander, nor one that is running the stealth package, nor the secret package. It's running Umbral Skulker and questing adventurers to really get a huge payoff onto large minions. Edwin Van Cleef also falls in that category by invoking Galakron.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Shaxy has entirely found the matchups he was looking for up against Tyler, where primarily I feel like this is very good against the Druid decks, but up against Mage, they don't have that much hard removal, to be fair. Rolling Fireball can only go up to 8, and if you have a whole bunch of coins, the Questing Adventurers, and in particular Edwin Van Cleef, can get above that crucial threshold.
Yes, and he is also playing Preparation in order to be able to combo Eviscerate with his generated Melvin Geese. Very smart.
Yes, of course. That is the only reason why he has thrown one of those in there. It's a weird list overall, and I am not entirely convinced, because if you just look at the cards that he has available, there's really not all that much that you want to combo the prep with. It's really just the Eviscerate and the Seal Fates that are by far the best options you're going to get. And it didn't have all too much success for him in his previous game here this week. It was the deck for him that got 0-3 swept, meaning that he ended up losing the series. But it's definitely innovative, and I hope we get to see a change of fate for him now.
True enough. As far as rogues are built, I like to highlight that the time when Rogue really shifted its identity, I'd say, is when Tomb Pillager rotated out and we saw kind of the end of Miracle Rogues. And from then on, Rogues seemed to have way more consistent draws, because it was always the meme before that they would sometimes lose the game with nothing in hand but coins and preparations. I feel that Shaxy's list somehow sacrifices the consistency that recent rogues are more known for in order to get those huge payoffs. So we might be seeing Shaxy end games with questings and unactivated Umbral Skulkers once in a while, and then it'll look like a very, very weak deck. But when it's able to pop off, then it's going to look like, why isn't anybody else playing this package?
And that is a great point you bring up, Gia, because in a deck that if you feel like you have to bring Rogue, which clearly you don't, but if you want to bring Rogue, I think what this week has shown is that the standard strategy is just not good enough. If you're just kind of going along, playing your invoke cards on curve, unless you hit exactly Galakron fully invoked on 7, it's just not really quick enough to beat the aggro decks or to stand up against the Druids. And therefore, giving yourself the potential to get a huge high roll with these questing adventurers, I think it's really smart. Why not give yourself the just potential to blow out your opponent? It's been working great for the Druids, at least.
Indeed, but we'll get into that matchup later, because Tyler is going to start off with the Warrior yet another time, escaping the bans, because I do think Shaxy has been prioritizing banning away Demon Hunter.
He has indeed, yet again today. Glad we're getting to see more Demon Hunter, it's got to be said. And Tyler to start things off with definitely not a premium hand, but a hand, again, that shows the potential to grow into something great here. Anchor, in order to draw the risky skippers, and then he's just a battle rage away from drawing most of the key cards in his deck.
Oh, the top deck from Shaxy, though. Why is every Druid having Fungal Fortunes on 2 today, it feels like? And the Wild Growth into... Oh my gosh, but... Wow. Tyler's also got probably the best top deck available for him right now, but instead, he says he wants board develop.
Yeah, I guess he's clearly leading up to the Ankar on 3 instead of the Corsair Cash, which is fair, because when you are anticipating the Glowfly Swarm, you really want to get that risky skipper as soon as you possibly can.
Sure enough. I wonder if Tyler would actually want to use an aggressive Inner Rage. Oh, maybe that presents a possible better Inner Rage target later on, especially if he draws something like Bloodsworn Mercenary.
I still think this is just Anchor. This is clearly Tyler's game plan, is he's giving himself a chance to beat Glowfly Swarm. And especially now that he's seen a lot of indicators that hint at a Glowfly Swarm. Fungal Fortunes into Wild Growth on turn 5. This, to me, definitely says Glowfly is on the cards.
True enough. And I do agree that Anchor was the play that turn. Just thinking about how the Warmaul possibly changes his Inner Rage usage later on. Shaxy, having seen the Ankar, has to be afraid of the skipper. So maybe he holds back another turn with his Glowfly. He could go for something like Overgrowth and then go Glowfly plus Power of the Wild later on, or even a Mount Seller turn.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off there, but yeah, on 8 mana, the exotic Mount Seller is looking insanely powerful with Ironbark, Innovate, and the Power of the Wild to buff everything up. That doesn't feel so weak to the Risky Skipper.
True enough. And just that difference of one added health onto a board can be crucial against Risky Skipper, because if Tyler is short one minion from being able to clear the whole board, it's as if he didn't clear it at all. He didn't damage it at all.
I really like what I'm seeing from all of these players so far. Tyler does set up for the Glowfly, and in a way it works out well for him because it forced Shaxy to not go for it, at least in his perception. But Shaxy is brilliantly pivoting away, so he doesn't fall into the trap of Risky Skipper.
Someone's gotta lead the charge.
I think with the draw of the other Sky Raider, that guarantees Tyler a Risky Skip of the Ankar. He knows he doesn't have to use it this turn. This is very smart, because if a Glowfly does go down, I think he'll want to use a charge, possibly into one of those minions.
Oh my god, G, this is about to pop off this game. In one hand, I'm seeing the exotic Mount Seller for a whole bunch of minions on this or maybe next turn. And on the other side, Tyler guaranteed to be able to hit a Risky Skipper. Blood Boil Brute will cost probably 0 mana after the Risky Skipper comes down. And then he just starts popping off.
Indeed. As far as Shaxy's pop-off goes, it's 3 minions max to be summoned this turn alongside the Mount Seller. Oh, it could be 4 if he wants to use Power of the Wild for a Panther instead of buff, but I do think the buff is more relevant if you're expecting the Risky Skipper response.
Wow.
Oh, this is gonna be bad news for Shaxy.
Whoa, so what is he going to be hit with here? It's Risky Skipper, Sky Raider,
Blood Boil,
Blood Boil, and then one extra effect is needed, which would have to come off of the Sky Raider.
Or he could just trade away on board. Doesn't seem bad. That's why I actually wanted to see the Ankar into a minion there. Unless you just believe you're gonna get a cheap pirate.
Everything is too good here, Gia. He's going to draw too many cards. I guess if you go Blood Boil, you go down to 5. Flame Battle Rage.
Oh, he's coining to clear the whole board instead. I think this is potentially undone by a very specific hand from Shaxy. Not expending the Battle Rage here. Of course, Tyler ends the board with a very, very strong presence, but I'm not entirely sold on holding it.
He could have just drawn 5 cards, and yes, he uses the second Risky Skipper, but that one was generated. He still has another one in his deck for if he absolutely needs it later on.
Well, the good news for Tyler is that Shaxy doesn't have Fog Beams available. So the only way that several minions are getting cleared is through, what do you know, Iron Griffin.
Yep. It's going to have to come to the rescue here.
Shaxy can cycle a Wrath onto the Armor Smith.
True.
Creatures.
Porcupine pretty good to be taunted up.
Oh,
Zigsaw. Rush is very,
huge.
very big here.
Does Shaxy want to taunt it up so he can get a value trade? Or does he want to shuffle the Prime immediately into his deck? I like this. And now suddenly the Battle Rage isn't terrible. It's still 2 mana draw. Okay, 3 now.
It's no draw 5 though.
And he's not got a way to answer the Mount Seller as far as I can see.
He could draw 4 here with Risky Skipper, Warmal plus Battle Rage, but that eats up all of his mana for the turn.
Does not sound good enough.
If he drew exactly Blood Boil Brute off the top with that play, then he would be able to play it for free, I think. That's actually only depending on what he targets.
Right, and I think he wants to target the Raven.
Yes.
I challenge you to Makara!
And that means that the Mount Seller will be living to see another day.
Even with
It's
the
one
blood
mana
boil off the top.
short. It's 1 mana short. It would have been a huge difference here if he had been able to play that, because it could kill the Mount Seller with the risky skipper proc. But Shaxy's card draw is just the overgrowth right now. And the Wrath, of course.
If he targeted Salet's Pride, however, he would have actually been able to play the Blood Boil Brute off the top.
You're right.
And the Raven would still have died after the Blood Boil is played. It's obviously not strictly correct because he had no guarantee of hitting the Blood Boil, but in this particular outcome, he would have been in a great position.
Mm-hmm. It's not to say that he's in a terrible one. He's got a lot of cards in hand, and maybe potential to go for some type of Brom cheese later on, but Shaxy with the overgrowth and a taunt generated, I don't think is letting go of his grip on this board. 6 sword drawn too.
I don't think he's letting go anytime soon. This is just running away from Tyler.
I don't see it.
He of course does have one final risky skipper in his deck because the second one was generated off of the Sky Raider. And with Deathwing Mad Aspect, maybe that is what he needs to swing things back.
Maybe. But if Shaxy just plays Zixor Power of the Wild this turn, I don't think Deathwing's getting through that one.
It's never just lethal on this turn, is it? No, you need another Savage Rock.
We've seen stranger things happen today, Derek.
Very true. 10, 20, 25. It's still a lot of damage. It's very close.
Kind of want to see this Owl traded into the 2-1, then he has space to go Zixor Power of the Wild.
But he's got to be thinking now, not only how do I win this game, but how do I possibly lose?
Sure.
Maybe Zixor is that answer, because if there is a risky skipper turn, he can get down a Blood Boil Brute, copy it, and get a sweep of 3 minions in order to clear 3 damage to clear off the rest of the minions. This could be Tyler's route back into the game.
Are there enough procs of Skipper to do this? The draw off the top?
Maybe not.
I don't think there are, especially with the Mount Seller.
And it's not even there anyway, so Tyler throws down the Mad Aspect, and we can see...
That's first! No!
It's not even close.
Disaster! Oh my gosh.
Well, he was dead anyway. I think we can clearly see there was no real way out for him in that game, even if he got the perfect deathing out. But still, mwah, what a beautiful way to end.
And it is far beyond me to say that I know the deck better than Tyler, but there were definitely 2 spots where we feel that things could have been improved. The first one was maybe not playing your Battle Rage.
Yep.
And the second was him maybe missing that interaction where if you actually play the War Maul onto a Messenger Raven, it doesn't immediately... Sorry, it immediately dies to the Battle Cry.
Yes.
So maybe Tyler was thinking that if you target the Messenger Raven once, it dies immediately because of the risky skipper interaction. But he could have targeted that Salet's Pride and had enough minions left on board damaged to then get a free Blood Root.
Yep, he could indeed. It was a very slight difference, and you could argue that he didn't even want to go for that, because if he didn't hit the Blood Boil Brute, it was just worse. But then again, you got to say, if there's a Mount Seller sticking on the board, maybe you have to hit the Blood Boil Brute if you want to have any chance of winning that game at all. It gets very, very close here, but that does mean that we are done with our first game of the series. And as always, we are going to go to a quick break to let Shaxy and Tyler prepare for the rest of this series, which will come right back after this. Welcome back to the final match of the day here for Asia Pacific here in Hearthstone Grandmasters. As always, of course, despite only having 4 games here in Asia Pacific today, you have the full suite of matches in Europe, which will directly follow on from us with Raven and Sottle, and then, of course, Americas with TJ and Frodan at the end. But before we can get into that, we got to find out who is going to be going up 2-0 if it is Tyler to take the win, or who is potentially going down to 0-2 if Shaxy is taking the loss here, because in his previous match here, Shaxy was looking very, very good, Gia, until it came to that infamous rogue.
It really did. I mean, I can't even count how many players across all the regions got swept on the rogues just this weekend alone. And you were saying that even before we started casting any of these matches that you're hearing whisperings from some of the players that rogue was just not the bring for this week, or it just ended up being the target for this week. And I couldn't have imagined a more accurate pan out.
Yeah, exactly. We saw Casey tweeting out just beforehand that he thought it was going to be the deck people were struggling with. Turns out he was exactly right. The numbers could not be more dismal. Well, they could be, actually, but they're very dismal for Rogue, is the point I'm trying to make here in my classic overemphasis fashion. But at the very least, despite Shaxy being on a relatively weak deck of the Rogue, he does have 1 game lead here, and arguably a hand that is doing something pretty powerful already on the mulligan.
Really does. We were talking about how even for something like Highlander Hunter, maybe that is the way to beat Warrior, is just early threats, curving out, and single target threats. What about making one huge questing early on, can't be weaponed down, can't be attacked by this Warmaul challenger, can't be skippered down?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about the weakness of Druid to singular big minions. If anything, Warrior is even more vulnerable. The Warmaul Challenger can't take it out, the weapons at 3 attack aren't getting the job done, and there are no removal spells in the deck. They rely purely on the minions they have in play.
This hand is coming together so beautifully for Shaxy. Next turn is questing, prep Evis, coin praise on the questing.
However, on the other side, Tyler's start is no slouch at all. Perfect mana expenditure, just exploding onto the board. But that is an Edwin Van Cleef.
Oh my gosh.
So now the play could pivot to just a straight-up all-in coin, praise Galacrond on the Armorsmith, I guess, prep a visit, and then Edwin for a 12-12?
I love it. You know, questing looked good enough to me, but that just looks insurmountable. And this always
Tyler's face. He's slowly clocking on. Okay, he just went for Praise Galacrond on my minion. And there's a prep, and an Abyss, and a coin. And there's the Edwin. It's only actually a 10-10. But I think as we can see it lining up against the Warmaul Challenger, that should be definitely good enough.
You know what he's thinking right now? How did Acolyte of Pain go into Hall of Fame, but Edwin dodged it?
Indeed.
All right. In any case, at the very least for Tyler, the way that the Rogue deck is built is so that you get the all-in payoff generally on one of those 3 cards, the 2 questings or the Edwin. Yep. Once you do the all-in on one of those, it's very rare that you get to get a good payoff on the remaining ones. So the fact that the questing is in hand now for Shaxy maybe gives him one less option that's effective to do this turn. But unluckily for Tyler, there's still just Lackey plus either of the combo cards.
So many options.
Yeah, I think I like the look of the Draconic Lackey plus the Miscreant. The one thing I'm considering is whether you just play out the questing adventurer here, because even though it's likely to give you a less powerful turn next turn, it's much more necessary for the warrior to remove, which maybe diverts the Corcoran from going face on the following turn.
Okay. Shaxy is with you on that one.
I like it. I do like this overall, because next turn, even if you have lackeys, it's likely to just be Shield of Galacrond anyway to put something in the way, while your Edwin is just the battering ram at the gates of Tyler's face.
True enough. I can't believe I was about to suggest the question of whether the Edwin trades into the Warmaul.
Sorry, did you just say something, Gio? I didn't quite hear you.
Of course, it's not in hand for Tyler right now, but there is a world where you get punished by the Warmaul trading into the 1/1, taking the minimum amount of in order to be damaged, and then something like Rampage and Bloodsworn could maybe just give Tyler a way to wrestle back onto the board. But then again, now that I think about it, if Tyler takes the turn doing that, the Edwin is just faster in terms of the damage it puts on.
Exactly. There were way too many maybes there for my liking, whereas the Edwin definitely can go face and will definitely be able to deal at least 20 damage here. The one question is that now Tyler does have the ability to trade the Warmaul into the 3/3 and then have the Blood Boil plus the Corkron kill off the Edwin.
Well, he traded his Corkron in order to discount the Blood Boil in the first place, but I get your point that he could have just used all the mana for that instead of playing the Sky Raider. I was even looking at copying the Corkron there. Of course, the Blood Boil just puts more stats on board, and he's got a high chance of being able to copy something on the next turn.
I think this is a really smart play from Tyler. I didn't see this at first glance. I was looking at just killing off the Edwin. But what this does is it stops the potential of the of the questing adventurer from being able to pop off. Yes, you take 10 extra damage in the process, but that's fine. Rogue doesn't have that much burst anymore. And look at the swing that Tyler has now made onto the board.
That is absolutely incredible.
He's not even armoring up. Why would you? Just keep going onto the board and go for lethal. This was a great play.
Makes me very happy to see. For Shaxy, though, he's got some answers. He could go Kobold Lackey SI7 to take down 2 minions, but feels bad to use the rest of the turn on Dagger. I'm also looking at Miscreant, but it lines up very poorly against the Bomb Wrangler.
Yeah, for Shaxy, we need to start thinking about outs in terms of how he's winning the game, because he is decidedly behind now. The outs of which could be you launch everything on at the face here and go for Galakrond into Kronk's plus Abyss. Yes, it's very unlikely that that gets you the win. But we're I think we're already approaching that territory quite quickly because he is not winning the board back here very effectively.
On this turn, I agree with you, but I think there's a world where he might be able to win it back over 2 turns. But it involves Tyler having just whiffs of a hand, right? Something like the skippers without the payoff cards. And I was gonna say Grom, but next turn it's playable, so there just aren't that many whiffs. Maybe 12 years.
I think now Tyler is in the lead, he can start to think about ways that he possibly does lose, which of course incentivizes you to start playing a taunt or getting the hero power down.
Or what about pushing for the counter lethal with the Corkron? That sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's kind of the hidden safe play, isn't it? Where instead of protecting your own life total, you just kill your opponent that little bit quicker.
He does set up lethal on board, but Shaxy can go for his Galakrond, armor up to stay alive from what he can see, and also draw into more options.
Yep, the only play on this turn. Obviously hoping to draw Kronks as far and away the best card for him here.
And Tyler's preparing himself for it. That's not Kronks, but Seal Fate is pretty effective here all the same.
It means at any point that he does find Kronks, he can of course put himself in a fantastic position.
To know good. Me too.
It's a close game.
Oh. Ankar allows him to draw Risky Skipper, but is it all that relevant here without the Armor Smith? Tyler needs that last piece of the puzzle to put him out of scary range.
If I'm Tyler here, I'm not really worrying about dying. I'm looking at just killing my opponent here. He is approaching very quickly lethal, especially with the Dread Corsair that can come down this turn.
Yeah, Tyler is being aggressive here. I'm just thinking that the only way that he loses from here is for Shaxy to cheese out some type of damage from hand. He is running the double eviscerates. So I think that Tyler has to push the button here, and he can develop a taunt.
Double Kobold and SI and Abyss still is just that little bit short of lethal. I guess you don't get much benefit by playing the Pirate anyway. The Sky Raider, I should say. Oh, and it is just on the knife's edge here.
Gonna be... Cat is not it. Big ol' Whelp too expensive to draw Shaxy anything that he can also play for lethal this turn.
He can't even leave 2 damage on the board. I don't think there's anything that Ethereal Lackey can get him to give lethal on this turn.
If you get Sinister Strike, there's just not enough mana, is there, to do everything he wants to do.
I think Carter is the out off of the Pharaoh Cap.
He could set up a taunt with his Titanic Lackey. I don't think that presents enough defense unless he also clears off minions. So he's gonna go Kobold and SI onto the 3-3. Taunt up the SI. And he stays alive from what you and I can see. Wait, what? Was he dead
I think
on board?
he was still just dead on board. With the Bomb Wrangler summoning bombs as well. Yeah, or just the skipper that comes off. Either way, we can see that I think if we worked it out there was technically a way for Tyler to get lethal no matter what shook out there from where Shaxy was sat. And despite, I think, Shaxy going for definitely the best line with the Edwin at the start, I am just so impressed with Tyler's play there on the turn where he sent out the Blood Boil Brute. That was such a niche line to find that tanked another 10 damage in the process, despite him having the ability to clear it off. But it was that discipline and that willingness to take the extra damage in the immediate that absolutely won him the game.
Yeah, I think that was brilliant from Tyler. And the thing is just that I feel that many newer players on Warrior, that's mainly myself, kind of tunnel vision on playing the Blood Boil Brute when it gets as cheap as possible, you know,
Yep.
0 mana, that type of thing. But a lot of the time, it can just get down to a 4 mana 6/8 rush. And guess what? That is insane stats and good recognition from Tyler to play it that early. And he gets the huge payoff from being able to copy it.
It absolutely is. Even just a 7 mana 6/8 rush is not that bad of a card a lot of the time. Just 1 or 2 mana can make it already insane. And I really like the way that Tyler played that again, as I said. And it does mean that Shaxy's strategy of leaving up the Warrior here in favor of banning the Demon Hunter has not worked out amazingly for him. The Warrior did end up taking a loss there overall. He was able to take the victory once, I suppose, at least. But now we are, of course, moving on to the 2 slightly weirder decks for Tyler in the Galakron Priest and the Reno Highlander Mage. Now, Tyler's strategy behind this year was saying that he was really just going for playing the decks he was playing on ladder. But it feels like there are some, even if they're coincidental, some real benefits he's getting from this lineup.
Yeah, running into Rogue, I would say, in particular, because it doesn't feel like the Priest and the Mage line up particularly well against Demon Hunter now that we've come to the light with regards to the Demon Hunter versus Priest matchup.
Haha, indeed. But not a bad start at all now for Tyler. He's got early game control with the Disciple of Galakron, and he's got late game value.
The Kultiran Chaplain is just a curve. A very strong one.
That's a good curve.
Count your blessings, mate.
Adam Lazul as well. This is working out great for Tyler. If he can snipe himself a Shield of Galakron there, that's a premium card to hit in this matchup.
Indeed. Shaxy can coin out his Miscreant if he wants to, but there's merit for holding on to coin with a hand that's shaped like this. He still has Backstab to activate Miscreant next turn if he wants it. I wouldn't be opposed to a slow turn of just Dagger up.
I was looking actually at Spy Mistress on this turn. He could then trade it to the Kultiran Chaplain, and then next turn, if he wanted to, we could see Backstab plus the Miscreant. But this way actually saves the Spy Mistress and still sets up for a kill on both on the following turn.
I like this.
This is smart.
I really like holding the coin in this hand. Oh, he does hit the shield, but he could take the coin to coin out his own shield
Right.
next turn.
think you still take the Shield of Galakron here. I know he's got a lot of stuff to spend his mana on,
I wonder.
but he's then only just coining into a 5-drop. He doesn't have any follow-up on turn 5.
He doesn't yet, but I feel this has a lot of potential to smooth out his curve because there's things in the deck like Time Rip. There's the other shield.
True.
There's just a lot of expensive cards in the Priest that maybe the flexibility allowed by coining one turn could help him for the follow-up.
Oh, but just taking the extra Invoke with Kronks in hand, like, if you can hit
Alright.
a 4 Invoke Galakron, that has to be insane. Oh! Tyler's on your side, though.
Yeah. I think it is really affected by how you view the matchup as the Priest, because I think the longer this goes, the more it favors the Priest, more so than the Rogue. They have the value in the deck and just in the nature of their hero power, post-Galakron. So I think as long as he's able to keep toe-to-toe with Shaxy in the mid and early game, then I think he should be in a pretty good spot.
Fair play. He gets to cheat out the Shield of Galakron that little bit earlier. And it does put him really far ahead on board. I'm not going to argue that.
And it gives him a pretty clean turn 5 if he wants Carge plus Penance, or the Dragon Maw plus Carge. Oh,
Ooh.
it'd be in
That
for
is a
some.
spicy top deck.
Yeah, I'm looking at questing Coin Eviscerate and go. Answer the 4/4 Priest. Granted, it's easier for them to do that these days than the days of old.
Yeah, there are a lot of answers to that. Just a 2 damage AoE plus the cool Tyran, Penance, the Time Rip as well. The list is a little bit too long for my liking, but there it is. Ding, ding, ding. The first Doomsayer off of the Faceless Lackey of GM 2020.
It's been a while, hasn't it? I almost forgot
indeed.
that this happens sometimes. And this, I think, is not necessarily bad for Shaxy. It's good. I'll straight up say it's good. He can clear Tyler's board, at least the
Okay.
4 or 5, and set up for something like empty turn, empty board, Shield of Galakron, or the questing.
Cold Blood, I love the look of against Priest, especially given Shaxy's build, which is a little bit heavier on burst. I will add an addendum as well. I think there may have been a Doomsayer that already came off in Americas, but at least here in APAC, this is the premiere.
Shaxy's saying he's gonna let Tyler deal with the Doomsayer, and I think the pick of the Cold Blood incentivizes him further because it feels like if Tyler is gonna be shipping damage into the Doomsayer, then Shaxy's more likely to stick a minion, which then gets immediate payoff with Cold Blood.
How do we feel, Gia, about crafting a time bomb here by going Mind Flayer Kaj on the Doomsayer, so as soon as it dies, Shaxy just cannot develop?
That is insanely smart, actually, Dar. It sounded so dumb at first. But if it works the way I think it does, it just passes Shaxy's turn unless he wants to expend resources into the Doomsayer. Right?
It would, of course, mean having to sacrifice your entire board, which is very arguably not worth it. This may be an instance of the classic so dumb it's dumb, rather than so dumb it's smart. Usually what I end up siding on.
And maybe instead of insanely smart, I was supposed to say smart sounding, but insane overall.
Well, that's my specialty. That's what I'm going for.
I don't know why I'm so obsessed with that play. I still feel like it had its merits.
It was cool. It, probably just wasn't good. It would have been cool at the very least. However, a
Shaxy?
significantly better
Oh.
target for Mind Flayer Kaj is actually a questing adventurer.
I was thinking about pointing out the Spy Mistress there, just to put another 2/2 onto the questing adventure, and I guess develop the Spy Mistress. Because as it stands, it seems like he's not gonna play Tog until the 7-mana turn anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he has no lackeys in hand, so you're definitely right. But now, questing has stuck upon the board, and Tyler, obviously has an answer no matter what on the following turn with Soul Mirror, no matter how large it grows. But Shaxy can use this opportunity to push a big amount of damage to the face.
I will act as your scapegoat.
Yes, indeed. But because of the threat of Soul Mirror, does he ever worry about leaving the Kronks on board? Because if that does come down, then Tyler is just so far ahead.
Well, he can maybe find an answer off of the spell here. Deadly Poison for just more burst.
I am looking at the dirty tricks, actually, just for more card draw. This doesn't look like a bursty game at the moment. And you can make the argument that Hog is going to get one for card draw. But oftentimes, against Priest with such a premium start, maybe that amount of card draw isn't even enough.
Wow, what do you know? Third option here
Alright.
comes down for Shaxy in the end.
The trade! Look at the respect! For Soul Mirror.
But the weird thing here, Gia, is that he doesn't end the turn with a Lackey in hand. And now
Yeah, that is-
Holy Nova and Breath of the Infinite are devastating for Shaxy.
I thought he was gonna step there. I just completely
So
missed
did
that
I.
he didn't.
I wonder.
Obviously,
That-
by having it on board, it's better against the Galakron, which he knows to be in hand. But it's disastrous
Yeah.
if there's an AoE.
And it's so easy for Tyler to have drawn one by this point.
Right.
I don't often call things straight up mistakes, but I think that was a straight up mistake.
His next turn is just looking so much weaker. If we were to just see Trade plus Soul Mirror here, or I guess in the opposite order so that you end up with a 4-1. But that's just good.
I'm also looking at Apotheosis Breath of the Infinite. Does he...
I like that too.
Oh, he's not got a dragon, so he can't actually keep his minion on board. In which case, you probably go for Soul Mirror. Okay, he wants...
Okay.
Interesting. So he wants
Well,
most
weirdly
of
enough
the
now-
high pressure minions off the board, but saves the Soul Mirror for something more impactful later.
Right. And now for Shaxy, he can actually Shadow Step back his Shield of Galakron just specifically to hit a Lackey on this turn.
I like the sound of that. I think he needs this Togwaggle online
Yeah.
as soon as possible. Otherwise, the hand is just not doing anything that the Rogue wants to do. They want to be the aggressor in this matchup.
Mana really does not work out well, though, because if he goes 3 mana Shield of Galakron, he's of course not playing the Bone Wraith on this turn. And he doesn't have enough mana to go Shield of Galakron plus the Lackey plus Togwaggle next turn.
It's like he's just going for the flick.
Choose soon.
Or you could play the Assassinate he took. All of it seems
Problem is
terrible.
that flicking the Shield of Galakron is bad for Shaxy because he really wants every Lackey generator he can possibly hit in his deck.
Ooh.
A 1-2 and an Assassinate is not very good off Murazon, so I expect that to be kept for a while.
You know, I think Tyler has the license to just play Galakron here.
It's very tempting.
I wonder.
He's just been so far ahead, not lost any health, that I wouldn't even mind for him to take the greedy hero power here. He's got Soul Mirror in case Shaxy does anything too drastic onto the board.
Yeah, it looks like he's leaning instead towards the upgraded Dragonmaw Sentinel and then giving it double lifesteal for twice the heal. Unfortunately, not actually how it works, but at the very least, it's an annoying minion for Shaxy to try and deal with.
He's got the flick, and he can Cold Blood the cat, to be fair. That's a board,
Oh.
but
That's just not very good. And he
The difference
knows,
that
again,
one
that the
Lackey-
Galakron is in hand.
I mean, missing the Lackey step, we didn't like. And now, we saw that on his second chance, being allowed to step the Shield of Galakron that survived, we see that if he stepped it back, he could have gotten the 2 invokes and activated his Umbral Skulker as well.
Yep, really is all just falling
So
apart now for
And he
Shaxy.
looks extremely stressed.
Bearing in mind, it could just be him looking at his cat running around his feet. We don't know for sure.
Weirdly enough, I think Shaxy was still playing pretty on point, despite the cat taking up half his turn.
Yeah, the cat was his Remy all along.
And Tyler must be thinking, what does Shaxy have in hand?
And it's such an interesting dynamic now because Tyler could just say, right, I have the mana spare, let's get down Galakron and start pressuring my opponent. But all the while he has it in hand, Shaxy can't develop really because it will just clear it off. And so Tyler blinks first, I suppose, if you want to look at it as a game of chicken. And he will still be very happy nonetheless.
That's a draw for Shaxy.
It's a draw of 1.
It's level 1, but what else is he doing?
Oh, gets him a lackey at the very least.
Yes, that's the main thing, right? He can go Galakron, get a lackey this turn, then go lackey Tog, and play the wand all in one turn.
But then the important thing is, as we saw from Tyler up against Samuel Sao yesterday, as soon as wand is played, it is the easiest Murazond of your life in response to draw 3 cards, bring them all to 0. You just pop off yourself.
Options.
Do you really play around that?
Oh, no. Sorry, I'm not saying that Shaxy should play around that by not playing 1. It's kind of the only option he has to come back.
But we do know that it is going to be fireworks pretty soon.
Lackey generated this turn means that full 10 mana available. The Togwaggle is online for next turn.
Kind of funny how this Aeon Reaver lines up against the Questing and the Edwin.
That is bad.
Indeed. But this is just kind of how priests can play sometimes. If you're not doing anything bad to them, they don't need to race you. They can just run you out of stuff. And use your own stuff against you. As we're gonna see shortly, I believe. So questing.
I am not really seeing much of anything else.
Okay, not going for the immediate one.
Setting up for a big questing plus taunt turn here.
Okay.
Another soul to consume.
Importantly, if he taunts up his Titanic Lackey, in theory that helps it survive against Soul Mirror, but it also makes the questing targetable by the Aeon Reaver attack. So it would end up dying anyway.
The weird thing is now for Shaxy that this may end up being a good enough turn for Murazond here for Tyler, where he can get a Bone Wraith, he can invoke his Galakron off the Praise Galakron for an extra minion, he even has Shadow of Death to then take out the questing thereafter. And that is why Shaxy is actually stopping right now, so that Tyler can't kill it off with the Shadow of Death. Instead, he could just kill it off with the Shadow Madness.
And that seems pretty premium. He gets the Reborn on the Bone Wraith. But honestly, I think maybe Shaxy this turn is telling us that he is going for a different game plan. Going toe-to-toe in value versus Priest. And this obviously seems like it doesn't work at the time if you just line up the Galakron hero powers. Priest gets a minion from their class, and Rogue gets a lackey, which potentially generates dragons and spells, but also potentially whiffs.
And this was enough from Shaxy to bait out the Murazond from Tyler. All of a sudden, his Togwaggle is free to go off, and he could just play the one very happily here.
Crazy.
Tyler, of course, gets a very powerful swing on this turn, though. But can that make up for it?
He doesn't. They're just one card short of being deathed away, too. So Shaxy can have his one off the questing and just start going off.
Submit, heretic.
Oh my god, Gia, this turn is about to go crazy.
Whoa! Oh my gosh.
Is it maybe ever just Umbral Skulker instead?
Yeah,
Like, I'm wondering how close to lethal Shaxy can get here. He's not there quite yet, but being able to go for Flick to take out the 2-5, but then that would of course destroy his own Bone Wraith.
Okay. What I'm looking at, I think he has enough mana to do with the coins. So it's Skulker. He can buff up his own Bone Wraith so that it survives Kronks. Then he can coin up Cold Blood as well. I think it all fits with the 3 coins. Oh, the problem is he doesn't have an attack to go into the second half of the Bone... if the attack goes into the second half of the Bone Wraith, he doesn't have the other attack for the Mirazon that remains.
Going for AoE after his questing survives.
Okay. Didn't want the Skulker at all this turn. I think that Shaxy really is trying to go for a value game plan here. Even trading into the Mirazon to respect Soul Mirror, exactly, I think. Oh.
And to be fair to Shaxy, maybe he can get there with that game plan. The wand is still ready to go for him now, and he can make one of the biggest Edwins that we will ever see with the Umbral Skull.
Edwin?
That was wrong from Tyler. He should have stolen the 1-2 and got the reborn.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And he knows it.
And these games have been going super long. Fatigue is starting to show, I think, for everyone.
The important thing here, however, though, Gia, even with that, slight bump in the road there, is double Mass Dispel against a deck that's running Questing and Edwin is such a big difference. Now, all of a sudden, the Soul Mirror, the Mass Dispels, should be okay to answer any big threats from Shaxy.
I'm starting to wonder if Shaxy even wants the 1. Just the way he's been going about his game plan screams to me that he's playing for Fatigue. I think he might even be going for Goblet.
Oh!
I don't know.
Don't even mention the Goblet, Gia.
On the wings of evil.
Ysera? Okay, he doesn't need the Goblet anymore, but I feel like 1 is less and less likely. Maybe Crown. Crown seems reasonable.
Such a fascinating way to play the matchup from Shaxy.
It really is.
So different from what we were expecting.
And that makes me circle back and wonder if not stepping the Lackey was intentional. I still feel like it looked really fishy. But Shaxy has had this game plan in mind for far longer than we caught on, I think.
He has indeed. Tyler can know 100% that it is Titanic Lackey because it's the only card that can't be in the deck.
Love that interaction.
Good deductive reasoning.
And Shaxy's constantly been presenting these small and irritating boards. That if Tyler wants to, not take the damage from it, he does have to expend an AoE. Whereas Shaxy's hardly been expending cards because they've largely been coming off of his hero power. Dara, what if this is just the way to play the matchup as Rogue? I really hope it's not the answer, because that means the average Rogue versus Priest match is going to go on way longer than we would expect.
It's just such a cool thing about watching Shaxy play. I just find it always so fascinating. He has such a different approach to the game to almost anyone else that I've seen play. And sometimes he messes up and it looks ridiculous. But maybe we're just seeing a glimpse of a completely different way to approach the matchup. He's played around a lot of the pitfalls that players commonly fall into. Like Samuel Sao yesterday, just ripping the wand. He got absolutely destroyed by Tyler's Mirazon. He shouldn't have had any business winning that game.
But we do know now that Mirazon has been played, so if Shaxy wants, he could still take the one, but I really doubt that he's taking one with the way his game plan and his hand is lining up. I'm thinking Crown. Oh, God!
It's the Kobold, Gia! He picks the Kobold!
What? We didn't even talk about. You told me not even to mention the Goblet. Am I allowed to mention the Kobold, Aaron?
Take us through it, Gia. I am speechless.
You can't put me on this. It's not like I have words. I don't think in my hundreds and hundreds of games of Galakrond Rogue that I have ever picked the Golden Kobold.
So the text on Golden Kobold specifically is different to that of the Golden Monkey or Refarm.
Correct.
It says replace your hand with legendary minions, not your deck. So it's not like he has legendary minions for the entire rest of the game. But one of the cool things that Shaxy can do is make 3 coins with the Umbral Skulker and then turn them into legendaries.
Oh my god, you're right. Is that why it's in the deck?
This, honestly, I think this is something he will have had considered right from the get-go.
Brilliant. I'm not worthy to be in Shaxy's presence. But before he transforms him, I'm sure he's going to want to get this Ysera down.
Yep.
This turn seems as good a time as any. Because ideally for Shaxy, and honestly, it's not that far-fetched. Just the way that the board party has been going, Shaxy's been maintaining a small advantage every turn, getting some incremental damage in there.
Yeah, it doesn't
And
cost
the
any.
second that Tyler runs out of threats, then Shaxy just comes out ahead.
That's right. The thing that Shaxy needs to be afraid of is Soul Mirror here to copy the Alexstrasza, so I like that he's not buffing it to too high of a degree. Even if the Ysera does stick onto the board, he can still just go for Flick to take it out in the absolute worst case.
Because here, I'm actually surprised that Shaxy traded his 2/4 instead of 2 1/1s. And aside from that, it's also just board space issues. You generally want to leave yourself a good amount of space as a rogue. Holy Nova, a pretty quick work of the majority of the board. Now, this doesn't seem good enough to warrant a Soul Mirror from Tyler.
And even though it's silenced, this Ysera just plugging away every turn is far from insignificant.
Actually, could get cold-blooded as well.
Edwin, I have to imagine as well, is one of the cards that he wants to play before the Kobold comes down.
Agreed. But I think Shaxy's been prioritizing being able to hero power every single turn, keep his hand as full as possible for the eventual Kobold.
Oh, I could just turn Ysera into a 10-drop here.
But Soul Mirror,
Ah, yeah.
I guess there aren't... I don't know about the average 10 drop, but Colossus of the Moon into Soul Mirror, it doesn't die immediately.
I think that works out pretty well for Shaxy if that does happen.
But it feels like a lot of them line up with the same attack and health stat.
Yeah.
Like that Archmage, etc. Okay.
Body Wrapper, there's no way he can get back into his hand, unfortunately, because otherwise he could rediscover a golden Kobold after it died.
Ah.
But I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think Shaxy has any shortage of value here. It's also cute that the Golden Kobold is the one that isn't a spell. Oh, if it's played off of Mirazon, it doesn't get the effect for the priest.
Good point.
Thy blood be
Tyler, with the modern version of Galakrond Priest, doesn't have the Plague of Deaths he needs to fight back against this situation. All of his cards are so weirdly and badly situated to respond to Shaxy's board.
The incremental threats just seem to keep piling up from Shaxy. Tyler can at least develop something of his own. The Ahmed is interesting for next turn. For now, Shaxy's able to push another at least 12 damage to face if he wants.
Yeah, he needs to start thinking very carefully now about which of his damage cards he wants to keep and which ones he wants to convert into legendary minions.
I do think Flick is also one of the ones that you don't want to convert. Battlecry, perfectly good here, very effective to get rid of the Sandhoof, one of in the deck, Tyler.
It's such a sick combo, Gia. Just pressing the hero power every turn, getting these weird rubbish lackeys that you don't really need, and then just boom, they're all legendaries all of a sudden.
He's getting ready for it! It's happening, there!
Oh.
And Tyler's like, why would you do that this turn if you're not going to be using the coins this turn?
darkness wanes.
I would tell you, if
Right.
this were a random game I played on ladder as priest, I would still not be expecting the golden kobold at this point, even though Shaxy is close to telegraphing that with the way he's playing his cards.
I want to try and pinpoint the exact frame where Tyler realizes what's going on.
We are all bound.
Alright, I'll handle looking at the board from now on. Oh, Tyler finally forced to rip the Soul Mirror. He can end the turn by taunting the 4/6 Ysera that remains for him.
It's a big, big swing in his favor.
It's in the box!
Oh, it's so tough though, Gia, because the burst plan is still kind of alive here for Shaxy, at least for the moment. He does, of course, know that there's another Apotheosis in the deck at minimum, in addition to Holy Nova and Penance. And maybe because of that, he does just ignore it completely and start going for the legendaries.
I mean, if there isn't a taunt here, is Tyler not just dead?
I think, yeah, he may actually have just been exactly dead.
Uh-huh. But because of this taunt,
Okay.
Shaxy might have to pull back a little bit. I do like the idea of maybe using some of these to get payoff on Ysera. I'm thinking the Nightmare to trade and then evolve the Ysera. He'll still be able to hero power this turn. He doesn't even have to do the Kobold this turn, depending on what the lackeys give him.
Because the one thing you have to be very careful when you're playing a deck with Refarm, say, Archvillain Refarm, that converts your entire hand and deck into legendaries, is losing on tempo. That can be very, very scary.
Look at the contract, though. Usually a very slow card, but we've approached what turns out is actually a value matchup.
Does that mean it's just lethal? With the coins, Gia!
Wait, it is!
He wins the game!
Oh my god! The coins! We never got to see the Kobold Seraph!
We were not worthy, Gia, and in the end,
Oh.
Shaxy's entire value approach is thrown out the window when it inevitably just comes down to exact lethal Cold Blood Abyss Nightmare to close out the game. That was something I don't think I'll ever see the likes of again, Gia.
I feel completely teased, Yark. Come on! He took the Kobold, he set up for it for I don't know how many turns. He had the full hand of coins. Could have seen a match to rival Hunter Ace versus Viper at the World Championship.
We were on the
But no,
verge of
he had the
greatness,
lethal.
Gia.
He
This
just
close.
had to go for the right play. Who does that?
I know. Yeah, give
I'm
the
upset.
crowd what they want, Shaxy. But overall, it's got to be said, even though we didn't get to see the actual play turn out, we did get to see what his thinking was, and that was truly something to behold. I loved
Yeah.
so much about that game. Once we knew what his late game strategy was, all the weird mid game plays start to make a lot more sense. Because obviously our thinking was you want to get up to the wand as quick as you can. But Shaxy was just one step further. He knew that the Murazon game plan for Tyler on the other side was just that much too powerful if he did go for the wand as quick as he could. And therefore, he saved it later and later and later, never wanting to give Tyler the chance. And even after he'd baited out the Murazon, he still held on to it because at that point he was saying, let's just fatigue him. Let's get too many threats with the Golden Kobold for them to answer.
I'm upset. Don't talk to me. What happened? The series isn't even done yet, though, because Shaxy has his Demon Hunter left. And honestly, I don't know what kind of game could follow up what we just witnessed. But I would like to see just some very good old-fashioned Demon Hunter game plan. If we see a powerful card in hand that's planned to be played on curve, almost certainly it is going to be played for the intended purpose. So at the very least, that's going to be satisfying for me.
Yeah, this will test an entirely different facet of play here for Shaxy. Taking a look at his Demon Hunter list for his last remaining deck, it is the lighter version. He's not running the Priestess of Fury and the Raging Fell Screamers, which could be working to his detriment, to be fair. Up against the Mage and the Priest, having a little bit of extra inevitability or extra threats in the mid-game can be very powerful. But you and I can both agree, Gia, this just feels like overall the slightly stronger build of the deck.
Indeed. At least in terms of exclusion of Priestess of Fury, but there's also a difference in the build that Shaxy's playing.
True.
Questing Adventure. This is something that we saw the most of in the LHS week, I do believe. But nowadays, it seems people are just going for the most streamlined version possible. Shaxy likes these questings, and you know what? They've been doing work for him throughout the day.
I think Shaxy just picked another Twin Slice there, Gia. And I'm already sensing a pretty straightforward game plan for him in this game.
I love it. Have a 6/6. He's got to do it, right? That's just what the curve dictates.
It does. I'm wondering if he wanted to try and save the Twin Slice in order to actually hit something with them instead of just going face.
Okay.
In which case he could save it for a turn.
We just need to think about the mage damage possibilities to determine how many Twin Slices Shaxy actually has to commit this turn. So we're going maximum is like Arcane Breath into Frostbolt, which would be
right.
50. But realistically, it's gonna be something like Arcane Breath Ping. So as long as he put it above 3 health, I was happy.
Yeah, even this plays around like Zephyrus Soulfire. Obviously, there's still Zephyrus Silence if that does come down, but he's probably got a good read that Zephyrus isn't there, given that the play was coin into the Observer.
Ping off the top is perfect for Shaxy's curve as well. And the Observer will soften things up, but Tyler's down to 9!
Bone Wraith does nothing, Gia. The Cane gets through it. Unless something comes off the top, that's game.
That is not it! What the heck? After...
That transitioned to one of the sickest late-game fatigue plans I've ever seen into one of the quickest, most one-sided games of Hearthstone I've ever seen. Tyler played a card and then died.
This is just the spectrum of Hearthstone, you know? Sometimes you have these games that, you know, I could take a bathroom break and it'd be over and I just miss the cast. And sometimes you have those long and grueling games where you can tell the game plan from each of the players until they do something absolutely crazy. And you know what? I kind of love it. This is the game we signed up for. This is the game that's our careers. And it just continues to surprise me every single day.
It does. And one other person, or one other thing that surprises me is a person, and that person is Shaxy. Week after week, he just brings these weird, different archetypes. No one plays quite like him. And I'm just loving what I see every week. The play this week of going for a bunch of Questras in his decks, it gives him the chance of just drawing like that, where there is no counterplay from your opponent. Obviously, that doesn't happen most of the time, but he played exactly to that here with the Sightless Watcher on 2, and he was rewarded for it thereafter. It was just a joy to watch that series, for us at least, if maybe not so much for Tyler.
It was a very clear game plan, and you know, props to Shaxy because the answers from Mage are very finite, and he could probably just outline them in his head right now. Like, there's Zephyrus Silence, okay, there's an insane Arcane Breath into Frostbolt, both of which are not really likely to be in that early hand, given that it is Highlander, and I don't think Tyler kept anything off the mulligan.
I don't think so either, Gia. I'm still going to have to take a while to process through that one, but we'll be doing that after the show is over, I think, because we are all done for today with our matches. So let's take a look back at the way things shook out today in both Division A at the start and then Division B later on afterwards. Flurry versus Alutemu, of course, with a victory going to Alutemu, meant that he equalizes at 1-1, but Possessi, his countryman, after beating Alutemu earlier on in the week, goes on to take a second win against Kin.
Yeah, and that means Kin himself, I think, is down 0-2 and Staz 2-0. Very, very impressive showing for the Face Hunter bring. Can't quite say the same for Chonsu, who unfortunately fell to Flurry the other day, but Shaxy also looking to have a pretty strong performance. And so far, I've really enjoyed what I've seen today.
I have indeed, and for Shaxy versus Tyler in that final game, I think it just, for me, perfectly demonstrates when Tyler beat Samuel Sao yesterday in a reverse sweep, then lost to Shaxy here, how Shaxy just played the series better overall. He went for these weird outs, gave Tyler no chance in that last game, and even in the game with Priest versus Rogue. We saw that the other way, and Tyler just destroyed the Rogue on the Priest versus Samuel Sal, whereas this time, Shaxy takes a very deserved win to go up 1-1.
Was an incredible day. And just for anybody wondering why these totals look a little bit strange, why do some players only have a total of 1 win and loss for this weekend? It's because that we have a total of 14 matches to be played every weekend for the one pass of round robin. So that means that every weekend there will be 4 players that only get 1 match played on stream. Later on, though, it will even out, and at the end, everybody will have a total of 7 wins or losses.
That's exactly right. We even out the same with everyone having played their 7 matches against all their opponents in the end. I cannot wait to see what the next few weeks bring here, because this has been such a great experience, and also I think a good learning curve for all of the players, because as it's been hypothesized over and over, next week's metagame I think is going to be a completely different landscape from what we're seeing here, because not only will I think we see a lot of rogues go by the wayside because of the relatively low power of the deck based in the metagame, but that also means if you go one step further, the decks that prey on Rogue may leave the metagame. We might see less Face Hunter. Maybe next week it would be a bad bring instead of a good bring.
I don't know what you mean about weak deck, Derek. You just play the version with this Umbral Skulker. You play for the Golden Kobold. And you know what? I just remembered now that it was also Shaxy last year who did something with Rogue that I was completely unaware of until it actually happened on stream up against Bomb Warrior. He went for the shuffling of Leroy's with the scheme and then drawing a bunch of them with 1 for the 1 turn.
Oh, yeah.
It was insane. And here again, I'm seeing Shaxy with the next level techs on Rogue and just a whole different approach to the matchup for which he was greatly rewarded today.
Yeah, one of those players like Purple is such a big advocate of this and so powerful at this, of just seeing all these weird late game scenarios that no one else is able to see. No matter how much they practice with the deck. I just think that was such an ingenious line there from Shaxy. Of course, he is only at 1 game, 1 win and 1 loss overall, but the important thing is he was able to take the win. And of course, Tyler goes to 1-1 as well. But with that, only 4 games today. We are all done here in Asia Pacific. And we're all done for the week here. We will, of course, continue next week on Friday with more round robin. But don't go anywhere. There is going to be Europe, and then America's following us up right after this. So thank you so much for joining me, Gia, in production here for Asia Pacific. But for now, we'll send you on your way to Europe.